The following program contains language which may be disturbing to some viewers.
Most Canadians know the Dominican Republic as a land of sparkling seas and endless beaches. But if you find yourself on the wrong side of the law here, you'll discover a chaotic and corrupt judicial system where normal rules do not apply. We're entering the jail attached to the main courthouse in Santo Domingo, where we have scheduled a rendezvous with a Canadian businessman who has spent the last 2 years in Dominican prisons. Antonio Carbone was running a multi-million-dollar casino empire in this country. Then he found himself incarcerated in January 2015, just 2 days after his story was told on the Fifth Estate. We recorded this interview surreptitiously.
Where I was being held for 24 months can be compared to hell. Why do I say that? I was locked up for 23 hours a day in maximum security. The food, the diet, is so bad that they feed it to the dogs and the dogs don't eat it.
Carbone has now been sentenced to 20 years in prison for attempted murder. What has become a sordid tale of betrayal and revenge started out with a glittering dream. Along with his brother Francesco, Antonio Carbone of Toronto had big plans to build a gambling empire. Their company, Dream Casinos, swept into the Dominican Republic in 2011 and bought up a string of gambling facilities.
The company was very successful, was very prosperous. We bought 12 casinos in 13 months and refurbished them. I don't think it's ever been done in history.
We did it. Hard work.
We had the momentum.
Hard work.
And there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears behind it.
The blood, sweat, and tears may have come from the Carbone brothers, but the money for all this came from one source. Their only investor was Canadian billionaire Michael de Groot, a retired captain of industry with a sterling reputation. He lent the brothers over $100 million because he knew there was big money to be made in the casino business.
He was very eager to do this business because obviously he knows where the money is. Everybody gambles. In good times or in bad times, everybody gambles.
Before long, however, Michael de Groot heard rumors that the Carbone brothers were stealing from him. He launched court actions to recover his money. One Canadian judge wrote, "Michael de Groot has a strong prima facie case of fraud against the Carbones."
So a prima facie case of fraud, what exactly does that mean for the laymen of the world, like my brother and I? Either there's a fraud or there's not a fraud. Either I'm guilty of murder or I'm not guilty of murder.
Don't you realize that many Canadians will read these receiver reports and numerous allegations in there and come to the conclusion that you stole money from Michael de Groot?
Nowhere does it say.
Where does it say that? In that report?
That I stole any money.
Where does it say that in the report?
And I challenge anybody to provide proof of any monies that I've stole or any assets that I have not disclosed worldwide that I have not earned.
Michael de Groot would later say he regretted ever getting involved in this venture, and many wonder why he would lend so much money to two brothers with a shady past. A few years before, they had been involved in an internet gambling operation called Platinum Sportsbook that police would later describe as a partnership with the Mafia and the Hells Angels motorcycle gang. They had also been charged with possession of unregistered handguns, which they tried to explain away by claiming they had received death threats.
I opened the envelope, there's a letter inside, it says, there's 5 bullets here, another 5 to go in you and your brother's head.
Okay, so your reaction to this was to buy guns?
They were an insurance to protect ourselves and our family.
You guys seem to be trying to convince me this was a good idea. In retrospect, don't you think this was kind of a bad idea?
Absolutely.
It was a terrible idea. But you asked me a question, why did you do it? And I gave you the explanation of why it was done.
When we left the brothers at the end of 2014, they were desperately fighting to get back control of their collapsing empire. Because they were losing court battles, the casinos were being taken away from them one at a time. Police arrived with guns drawn to carry out search and seizure operations. They were losing their source of income. Many of their former company executives were turning on them.
We are sitting together today, a year and a half after the conspiracy against us started. We will regain control of our corporation, if it means the death of me.
In Santo Domingo on December 1st, 2014, the story took a violent turn. One of the Dream Casino executives who had turned against the Carbone brothers was the target of an attack. His Jaguar was blown up outside his apartment building.
Yeah, there's a glass here.
Fernando Baez said someone was trying to kill him.
That is what is left from my car. Yeah, you can see the magnitude of the explosion is 2 months ago, and look how the glass is all over still.
Baez laid the blame at the door of Antonio Carbone.
I'm not gonna let this band of thieves, directed by Antonio Carbone, kill me or do any damage to my family, because justice is gonna take care of them here.
Año de prisión preventiva contra Antonio Carbone, ejecutivo de los casinos Dreams.
In January 2015 came the arrest of Antonio Carbone, which was big news in the Dominican Republic.
Está acusado de intento de homicidios contra Fernando Báez Guerrero, luego de que el pasado 1 de diciembre su vehículo.
The last 2 years in prison have been hard ones for Antonio Carbone. He has seen numerous delays in the judicial procedure against him. He has suffered health problems. We were the first visitors from Canada he has seen.
Are you now sorry you ever got involved in this whole thing?
Absolutely. My dream, as you know, I'm the founder of Dream, turned into a nightmare. And there's no money in the world that's worth what I've had to live through and endure for the last 2 years and 3 months of my life. Not only when I was in what I would classify as hell, but also my time here. Nobody realizes how important your liberty is until you're locked up like an animal in a cage 23 hours a day.
I'm sure there are people in Canada who would say, what's he whining about? If you can't do the time, don't do the crime.
Well, but I didn't do the crime. That's the ironic thing. When supposed crime occurred, I wasn't in the country. I was in Canada.
It is true that Antonio Carbone can prove with airline records that he was in Canada when the car attack occurred. And Fernando Baez has changed his story. At first, he told us and the courts that the explosion happened just seconds after he left his car.
And 3 seconds after I arrived to my house, it exploded.
But later he told us that he was not actually driving the Jaguar that night and that he was upstairs in his luxury apartment when the explosion occurred. Underlying this whole story is the reality that justice is for sale in the Dominican Republic. There are allegations that both sides in the Dream Casino battle have been paying off police and government officials to do their bidding. Antonio Carbone claims that he is the victim of extortion, that witnesses and even Dominican officials have frequently asked him for money.
The lead investigator in the case is currently under house arrest, which is Isidro Vázquez Peña, for corruption. And the judge who sentenced me to 1 year prisión preventiva is Margarita Cristo, which 3 weeks ago was fired and removed from her position as a judge for corruption.
Se trata de la magistrada Margarita Cristo.
He is right about that. Judge Margarita Cristo was removed from her position for corruption. And prosecutor Isidro Vázquez Peña was arrested and charged with soliciting a $125,000 bribe in another case.
I never foresaw that corruption within the Dominican Republic was going to destroy my life.
While the case against Antonio Carbone is especially shaky even by Dominican justice standards, the brothers still have to explain a long, sordid history in Canada. In 2013, Toronto police laid a criminal complaint against Francesco Carbone, an allegation that he plotted to cause the death of another Dream executive named Andrew Pajak. The charge was said to be based on a tape recording of him.
To be honest with you, I didn't say anything on the tape. I believe the tape was spliced and cut. And that's what the police got. Because of when I got charged to all the appearances in court, there was no disclosure.
Zero.
Of anything.
So was there really a tape?
I don't even know if there was a tape.
Did you ever say anything that could be taken as a threat against the life of Andrew Pajak?
Absolutely not.
Turns out there is a tape recording of Francesco Carbone apparently plotting to murder Andrew Pajak, a tape we obtained after our original interview with the Carbone brothers.
Am I gonna be able to do facettes soon?
So very soon.
Like how soon?
2 weeks.
The tape was made by a criminal named Sasha Visser, who here seems to be trying to sell his services as a hitman.
What do I have to make Paycheck look like? Like just a shooting or just like a...
It doesn't make any difference. After I do what I have to do, bro, they can stop, they can ask me whatever. I got no dispute with them, nothing.
But can we whack them in Dominican? You can't kill them in the Dominican.
It's worse for them.
Why?
It's worse for them. Because it'll fucking hit every fucking paper press.
And just because they're all done.
Fucking kidding me, bro? You're fucking destroyed. Fucking here, it's a regular fucking building, big fucking deal. Over there, it's the president of Dream Corporation.
So it's a big deal over there.
Sure. Come on. You know that.
Since we last spoke, there was that famous tape of your brother apparently plotting to kill somebody. How do you explain that tape?
Listen, fake evidence has been provided in these proceedings from day one.
But how is that tape fake?
To be honest with you, I haven't heard the tape, and to date, I don't know if the tape has been quantified or
Doctor.
If it has been
altered.
Well, obviously, I don't even know who my brother was speaking to at the time, or who he wasn't speaking to. But with regards to any evidence against my brother, from what I understand, the charges that were laid against him were dropped because of lack of evidence, proving his innocence in any type of conspiracy.
The charge against Francesco Carbone was eventually dropped, and he is suing the police for malicious prosecution. But now the brothers are in more trouble because of threats to another corporate executive. Today, the Dream Casino operations in the Dominican Republic are being run by Toronto businessman Ed Krembluski.
It's all under investigation. There's court cases going.
We encountered him in 2014.
Carbones fabricate things. They lie to make a story because they're charged with fraud. They're desperate.
He is a witness in the case against Antonio Carbone.
Whoever and whatever and type whoever. I've gotten threats personally. So.
Have you?
He says that he and his family have been threatened, and that someone fired a shot at his house in Toronto last August. An incident reported to the police.
Apparently somebody's taken a shot at his house in Toronto, and of course he blames you and your brother.
Well, it's impossible that I could have taken a shot at his house because I've been kidnapped or illegally imprisoned and kidnapped in the Dominican Republic. So it's impossible that I had anything to do with it. And I felt very highly that my brother would have anything to do with it. And if he did, I figure by now, with the resources that the Canadian officials had, they would have arrested him for such a crime.
This is where some new shady characters have entered the story. The Loners motorcycle gang of Toronto has a long history of drug dealing, extortion, and murder. The Loners leader, Gennaro Jim Rasso, and his son Michael are accused of uttering threats to Ed Krambluski and his family, and the shooting at his house. In a lawsuit, Krambluski claims the bikers warned him not to testify against Antonio Carbone, and that his family would face maiming and death if the charges were not dropped. He says he was told his son Justin would be shot in the head, and that his daughter would be maimed and killed. Krambluski says Frank Carbone is behind the intimidation campaign and has sued him for damages in Ontario Civil Court. The claims against him and the Razzos are unproven. There are a lot of losers as this story winds down. Billionaire Michael DeGroot not only lost a lot of money, he was embarrassed by revelations that he had employed a known gangster and testified falsely about it under oath. His lawyers claimed his memory was impaired by prescription drugs at the time. Now they are saying he is mentally incompetent. Sasha Visser, the criminal employed by DeGroot, is also now in prison in the Dominican Republic. As for Antonio Carbone, facing 20 years in a Dominican prison, the vicious battle over dream casinos seems to have broken his spirit.
The biggest mistake of my life to get involved with Andrew Pajak and Michael DeGroot and to build Dream. What I thought was important is not important. Because every entrepreneur thinks it's all about the money, the power, and the fame. That's not what life's about.